Chances are, if you've spent any time in YouTube lately, you've seen a lot of videos talking about artificial intelligence and more specifically, an AI application called chatGPT. So chatGPT is a computer program that can understand and generate human-like language, or otherwise known as natural language processing, with the user of the system. Now, at the core or foundation of chatGPT, it has a knowledge-based repository of information that it has stored. Now, the scientists and engineers that have programmed chatGPT applied machine learning techniques so that they could feed the AI application data and it could start learning from the information it starts receiving. Now, this application has been around for a while, but within the last few months, it's gained a lot of popularity. Hey, quick timeout. No doubt you've seen this, stockhacker.com. It's my free newsletter where you can get stocks that I'm watching, investing tips, and trading strategies. So be sure to sign up today because it's completely free for the first 100 people that register. Now, initially, GPT, or Generative Pre-trained Transformer, was developed in 2018. Now, that was the original AI model that this company, OpenAI, developed. And now, ChatGPT, its original version, was developed and released in 2019. So it's been around for a few years. Now, version 3 of the GPT model was released in 2021. And it's only been within the last few months that the ChatGPT application that we see mentioned so often in all these different YouTube videos has become extremely popular based upon that version 3 of GPT, which some people are now calling 3.5 because there have been some additions and enhancements made. Now, if you're not familiar with ChatGPT, probably the best thing to do is walk you through a demo of what it is and what it can do. Here's the primary interface for ChatGPT. Let's go ahead. Well, let's do a quick demo, and I'm gonna have it tell me in 400 words what is a recession and how it affects the stock market. So I'll enter my question here. And then ChatGPT will go ahead and think about it for a second, and then based on its knowledge repository and the things that it's learned over time, it's going to give me a description or tell me what a recession is and how it affects the stock market using it within 400 words, which is what I asked for. So you can see here it's answering my question and explaining what the recession is, right? It's a recession is a period of economic decline characterized by a decline in gross domestic product, GDP, for 2 or more consecutive quarters. And then it goes on to talk about how it affects the stock market. You know, there's going to be a decline in stock prices that can lead to a decline in consumer and business confidence, which can further exacerbate the economic downturn. So it goes on and does a pretty good job of explaining technically what a recession is and how it would affect the stock market. But you notice as you read through this, it assumes that the reader has some knowledge of economics, the stock market, probably a higher level vocabulary. And so, you know, not everybody's going to be as well versed as others in the market and economics, marketing, things of that nature. And so what I can do is I can ask ChatGPT to make it a little bit easier to understand. So I can type in something like, tell me again, explain it in terms that a 14-year-old could understand. So for example, if this is someone, an individual that's in middle school and they're writing a report and they want to understand what a recession is and how it affects the stock market, you know, they get that initial answer, but maybe they don't understand all the terminology, right? So they're not a sophisticated investor. They don't have a lot of life experience in this area. And so they could ask ChatGPT to give them a different response or a better response, better suited for who they are. So in this case, explain it in terms that a 14-year-old can understand. So I'll hit return, and then you see ChatGPT thinks about it, and then it starts giving the answer again. So it's the same prompt, right? What's a recession, and how does it affect the stock market? But in this case, they've made it easier to understand. In fact, they brought it down to the level that a typical 14-year-old would be able to understand. So you can see here the very first paragraph, right? A recession is like when the whole country's economy gets really sick. Just like when you get sick, you don't feel like doing things or buying things, the same thing happens to the economy. People and companies stop buying and selling things, which makes the economy go down. So that's pretty good, right? And so it goes on and explains how when there's a turn down in the economy, it can affect the stock market. And it even explains a little bit about what the stock market is, right? The stock market is like a big store where people buy and sell little pieces of companies. When the economy is not doing well, people don't want to buy and sell those little pieces anymore. And so the prices of those pieces tend to go down. So that's a pretty good example of what ChatGPT can do, right? You give it a prompt, and if you want, you can tailor the response. But it's not just used for, say, the economy or the stock market, things of that nature. You can use it for just about anything you can think of in life. So any prompt or any question you may have, you can pose the question to ChatGPT, and you can start to have a conversation where you can drill down and get more information. So, for example, let's try something that's not related to the economy or to the stock market. How about, how far is it to the bottom of the Grand Canyon? So I'll type in my prompt and I'll ask about how far it is to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. You know, depending on where you start and where you go, what trail you take, that's going to vary. And so let's take a look. But what they're talking about, you know, it's 4,770 feet deep. But that's a straight line. But what if you're going to hike it? So we can ask ChatGPT, what is the distance? Now you notice I don't say what's the distance to hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon because we're still having this conversation. So ChatGPT knows that I'm referring to the Grand Canyon. It's implied. And now when I'm talking about hiking to the bottom, it knows, all right, so if I'm going to hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, the distance will depend upon the trail that I take. But I can talk about something else, right? So maybe about my rose bushes outside. So the leaves of my rose bushes are turning yellow. What should I do? Let's think about it step by step process so it's easier for me to follow along. And so the ChatGPT responds that the yellow leaves on rose bushes can be caused by a number of factors. And here are some steps to diagnose the problem and take appropriate action. Great. Now it's a good time to point out that ChatGPT does have its limitations, right? It's an AI model that was fed information, and it's only as good as the information that was supplied to the machine learning engine. So if I'm feeding it good information, then it has a knowledge repository that it can pull from to make the responses. But if I'm feeding it bad information that's false or inaccurate, well then guess what happens? The ChatGPT can only respond based upon the information it has. So if it's bad information that it was fed, it's going to be bad information that comes out of it. Now, in particular, this specific engine, the last time it was fed data was in September of 2021. So that's, a little bit over a year ago. So you need to take that into account when working with this particular AI application, that the information is only accurate and up to date up until September of 2021. So the reality is it doesn't know about the events and data past that point. So anything that happened after that date, say for example in 2022, ChatGPT has no knowledge of any of those events or the data. And so it's not going to be able to base any of its responses on some of the current information. And then also, I need to point out, it's not a replacement for professional help, right? You can obviously ask it information about, say, your health or your personal finances and wealth or relationships and things of that nature. But in reality, it's a tool for information purposes only. I would like to say that if you are seeking medical advice or financial advice or relationship advice, anything like that, I always recommend seeking professional help from qualified individuals that are licensed or certified to perform such functions. Don't take it as you can use this tool and get all the answers you need. You'll get answers, but they may not necessarily be accurate, as I mentioned. It's only as good as the information that was supplied to it. So now that you've seen a little bit about what this AI application is and what it can do, and I've just realized I've barely scratched the surface, one of the first things that comes to my mind as an investor and trader is, can I use this artificial intelligence to help me pick stocks? And so for that, here's a quick demo about using this tool to pick stocks. Let's go back to ChatGPT and take a look at how it might be useful in our stock trading. So a question I get a lot is, can I use this AI engine to help me pick stocks? And I'm going to answer it's a mixed answer, but in reality, no. But let me show you some demos that will get you thinking of what might be possible. So first, let me start with asking ChatGPT, what are good stocks to invest in during a recession? So it's going to start giving me some information. It says, during a recession, it can be a good idea to invest in stocks that are considered to be defensive or non-cyclical, such as utilities, consumer staples, and healthcare. So it's just talking about some basic information. It doesn't really give me any specific stocks that I was looking for, right? So I'm looking for actual stock names. So what if I just say, give me stock picks? Let's see what ChatGPT responds with. It says, I'm sorry, but I'm not able to give you any specific picks, as the stock market is subject to fluctuation and past performance is not always indicative of future results. Very true. Plus, right, it's not licensed as an advisor, like a certified financial planner or certified financial advisor. Doesn't have any of the licenses. It didn't pass any tests to get those certifications. Plus, as I mentioned earlier, right, so all the information in this particular AI engine is based off of data from 2021, so it's not very current. So you have to keep that in mind. But what if I say something like this? Give me dividend stocks, or actually, give me examples of dividend stocks that I can invest in during a recession. So it already told me that I need to look for defensive or non-cyclical stocks such as utilities and consumer staples and healthcare. So maybe you can give me some examples of what some dividend stocks that might be able to fall into those areas. And sure enough, here we go. Some examples of dividend stocks that may be worth considering during recession include Johnson & Johnson, stock symbol J&J, Procter & Gamble, stock symbol PG, AT&T, stock symbol T, Walgreens Boots Alliance, stock symbol WBA, and Next Era Energy, stock symbol NEE. So just so we're clear here, these stocks that it's providing as examples are fairly well known in the trading industry as stocks that are well known for their for the dividends that they pay. So these stocks have these companies have these stocks that have been around a while. They have a pretty significant history of paying dividends over time. In fact, I think if we look at all of these, they would be considered dividend or stock aristocrats, dividend stock aristocrats, where they've been paying dividends consistently over at least the past 25 years. So this is not brand new information. It's just giving the ChatGPT is just giving us information that we know already exists. So with this in mind, I'm thinking we could use ChatGPT or other AI model tools just like it to help us research and analyze different stocks. You can get more investing tips, trading strategies, and also stocks I'm watching by simply subscribing to my newsletter. stockhacker.com. Here's one quick example of how I think I could use it. I'm going to use this tool to help me figure out which marketing indicators I could possibly use to help me identify stocks. Or maybe we could take a different track using this tool, and as investors and traders, look at how we might be able to use it to research for different ideas for stocks. Right? We know that we use fundamental and technical analysis as part of our activity that when we're checking on stocks. We know that there's different sectors and industries that go in trends. The tech industry one year may be doing really well and the next year falling down flat on its face. Same with finance or any other industry or sector. Plus, we also have to balance that against our own personal strategy and what our risk tolerance is. But I think there might be an opportunity here where we can do some research using ChatGPT. So maybe I might do something like this, where I ask it, what market indicators do traders use to monitor and analyze stocks? So ChatGPT thinks about it, and then it says traders use a variety of market indicators to monitor and analyze stocks. Some of the most common used indicators include, and it's giving me a list, right? It's telling me moving average, the relative strength index, or the RSI. We've got Bollinger Bands. We check the volume, right? So how many stocks are being traded at a particular time. The MACD, also Fibonacci numbers. So these are some of the market indicators that we as traders and investors use. And so basically it's giving us information that's already out there and that we know about. But let's say using this information, maybe we can convince ChatGPT to give us how we might use these particular indicators. And so what if I say, give me a strategy. Give me a strategy using, say, moving averages and what's another one? And MACD for picking stocks. Let's see if it's able to answer and give us a response that's useful for us. So one strategies traders use to pick stocks is to combine moving averages and the MACD. Right, so that's what I want. How can I use those two indicators to pick stocks? Well, here's an example of how this strategy might work. So now we're getting step by step what the strategy is and how to use these two indicators. This is awesome, right? So step 1, identify the stock. Step 2, plot the stock's price on a chart with two moving averages, the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average. Wait for the short-term moving average to cross above the long-term moving average, known as the golden cross, and so on. So we can see the very specific steps. And it says right here, step 5, look for a bullish signal when the MACD line crosses above the signal line. Buy the stock with both the golden cross, which is in the moving averages, and the bullish signal in the MACD occur. So that's perfect, right? So now we know that when we get the golden cross condition in the moving averages and the bullish signal in the MACD, we know that's the time to buy. That's perfect. This is great. What if we want to use a different strategy? Well, let's see if we could do another one. Give me a strategy. How about the Bollinger Bands and the MACD? Let's see if we could do something like that. Well, here we go. One strategy that traders use to pick stocks is to combine the use of the Bollinger Bands and the MACD. Here's an example. This is awesome, right? So it's going to take me through the exact steps I need to use if I'm going to use a strategy based upon Bollinger Bands and the MACD, right? So first, identify the stock that I want to use. Step 2, plot the stock's price on a chart and add the Bollinger Bands. Wait for the stock's price to touch the lower Bollinger Band, which is considered a bullish signal. Add the MACD to the chart. Look for a bullish signal when the MACD line crosses above the signal line. And then specifically, buy the stock when both the stock's price touches the lower Bollinger Band. Right, so that's the first indicator. The stock's price touches the lower Bollinger Band. And the second indicator is the bullish signal in the MACD. That's perfect. So I can do this, right? So let's take a look. Let's go ahead and show an example using shares of Apple stock. And we're going to apply, we've got the Bollinger Band here. You can see the upper and the lower range. And then the MACD plotted down below. And so first off, we're looking where the stock's price touches the lower Bollinger Band. So an area like here, you can see that the stock price is touching the lower Bollinger Band. But then we're also looking for when, what's their term that they used, when the bullish look for a bullish signal when the MACD crosses above the signal line. So we want to see where the blue line crosses above the yellow line. And so we can see that here. And so at this point, let's go ahead and measure what that end result would be. So we're close to the bottom. We could ride this up until you can see here where the bullish signal drops below the signal line. So let's say we sell till when the bullish signal drops, or when the bullish signal touches the signal line. At this point, the stock price is here, and if we were able to execute this trade when we saw the conditions being met, we would realize a gain of 27.87%. Let's try a different stock. Let's take a look at Google. Stock symbol GOOG. And again, we want to look for a condition where the stock price touches the lower Bollinger Band, so here, and the bullish signal crosses above the signal line. So the next one is down here, we can see. And so at this point, we would execute a buy. So let's go ahead and measure that out. So if we execute the buy here, where's the stock price? There. And we wait until stock price drops below. That takes us to here. And for this trade, it would only be a 3%, 3.01%, but it's still a profitable trade.